Mr. Yoder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for joining us today, and appreciate your service at the SBA. Consistent with the Chairman's remarks, I think we all know that job creation, job growth comes from our small businesses, our entrepreneurs. Federal government's not going to grow the jobs that's going to create a rejuvenation of our economy. It's not going to come from big businesses. It's going to come from small businesses. So we thank you for your work, and we know you're sort of on the tip of the spear when it comes to the economy. We spend a lot of time on both sides of the aisle, I think, talking to constituents and talking particularly to small businesses, local companies, whether they be a high-tech startup or whether it be a mom-and-pop shop that's been on Main Street for 30 years, and spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to help them grow. I know you do the same thing. I thought you might give us some insight on what you and some of your staff have heard and what feedback we should be hearing regarding what holds small businesses from going out and taking risk and maybe adding another employer or employee and expanding. And I wondered if you could just shed some light on what you hear. And as I've been out in my district, I hear concerns about federal policy, in uncertainty created in Washington policy, whether it be policies that were passed in previous years or policies we're looking at now. As we change the rules, it creates, I think, uncertainties for businesses that they want to know what the cost of doing business is. They're kind of weight on us. I hear concerns about the Dodd-Frank rules being implemented and their impact on community banks and how that might affect local lending. I hear concerns about the federal tax burden and small businesses concerned about taxes that have gone up in the past few years. We all hear concerns about the Affordable Care Act and whether businesses can accurately determine what their costs of health care are going to be. We hear concerns about regulatory costs, that as a new regulation comes down, it might affect a business, and the lack of predictability in that. Immigration concerns come up a lot. Folks having trouble getting access to labor, or the rules being difficult for them to follow through. Job training being one, whether there's a well-prepared labor pool in the region. Maybe businesses say we may go overseas because we don't have the access to the engineers we need locally. So depending on the business, there's a variety of concerns. But I just want to share with you some of the concerns that I hear. And in general, I hear that all of these policies together make it difficult for small businesses to calculate the cost of hiring a new person when they're not sure what their health care costs are going to be, their tax burden is going to be, the regulatory burden is. And so what do you hear out there, and what can we do collaboratively to try to improve the climate to encourage our small businesses to feel comfortable to take risk and hire new people and help get our economy moving again?
Sure. Thank you, Congressman. We hear a lot of different things from different businesses. Some businesses are more focused on that. Some businesses are more focused on access to capital and how we can help them with more fundamental counseling around their, business decisions. We help businesses with all of this, and we certainly, do a lot to get out and message around changes in our regulatory environment. We spent a lot of time out on the Small Business Jobs Act, which was the largest piece of legislation to impact small businesses in the last 10 years. It was very positive legislation, though. So we were out talking about the 17 tax cuts that the president put forward for small businesses. We went out and did a lot of messaging around the Affordable Care Act because this was a huge law that businesses had to learn about and understand how to respond to. And what I encountered in that outreach, I did about 30 seminars on the Affordable Care Act, so I've heard a lot from small businesses about this. I first and foremost encountered an awful lot of confusion, and that was holding businesses back from doing their detailed analysis about how they could and should respond to this law. So we did a lot of work to clear that up, and we continue to work in that area. You'd be surprised by how fundamental issues are for businesses depends on if you're talking about a startup or a much larger business in terms of whether they're focused on regulatory issues or not. And we do everything we can through our counseling resources, through our field office and structure to meet their needs on these questions.
You brought up some of your seminars you did on the Affordable Care Act. How much new staff time has been devoted towards just the implementation of that? We're kind of at a real hot point right now as the penalties and mandates are going into effect for certain segments of the economy. There have been some delays, which causes additional, probably some confusion. Folks don't know what's being implemented and what's not, and both sides have advocated for certain delays. So I think that's, part of the challenge. How much time does your staff spend on that? Is there a spike right now? Is it sort of subsided? What sort of traffic are you getting on implementation of that? Questions from businesses?
Sure. Thank you, Congressman. Just to be clear, that our field staff is primarily an outreach organization, and what we do in our normal operating business is outreach. So we haven't spent any additional time. I mean, that's what we do, outreach. And responding to the questions around this new law, we're fully within the scope of our duties. So one really happy byproduct that happened as a result of this outreach is that there was so much general interest in understanding this law and learning how to respond to it that we reached whole new groups of small businesses. And we often would do a side-by-side seminar, ACA seminar, SBA seminar. So we reached whole new groups with our message, which was we've deepened and broadened our network of businesses that we touch with our services. So there's no new money or time being spent. It's just part of our normal activity in the field.
And in terms of just the interest level, is that higher now, or is it folks sort of getting a good understanding of it? Because obviously our offices get lots of calls, lots of concerns, lots of just uncertainty. Whether you're for the law or against the law, we can continue to debate that, and we do in this town. But your job, obviously, is not to render a decision on whether it's a good law or a bad law, but just to get out and make sure that whatever laws are on the books, that people have the information so they can move forward. And I think what we all want is a growing, robust economy, and that means Republicans and Democrats have to work together and ensure that you have the tools necessary when you're out there to answer all the questions you need and have the resources available to help these small businesses. Because I think, as we've stated, that's the key to our economy. And so we want to encourage and support your efforts and ensure that we're not doing anything with some of these policies that we've brought forward to make it harder. And so if you'll let us know things that at least you're hearing that might allow us to modify policies, make things more effective, or at least easier for these businesses to grow and expand, I think we're looking for opportunities to everybody to work together to do that. So
Great.
Appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.